One of the biggest issues to come out of Cop27 is, of course, the idea that the global north should contribute to the ramifications that the global south is facing as a result of climate change. Now, you don't have to be a genius or have a PhD in geography to see that so much of what we do here in this part of the world, literally what we consume and how we live, how we get energy, the products that we have. I'm sure that all of this was made in China, except for this is made in India. And that it's products that we use. And so when we have floods, droughts, these are often in places that are least equipped to deal with them. We're raising the climate, we're raising the temperature of the earth, and yet when there are floods and droughts, it's places down here that have to deal with that. And many people at COP27 are urging us to contribute to a fund and have stopgaps so that when these disasters happen, these people's economies don't just stop. I've had the opportunity to live and visit many of the places here. And so I wanted to just give you one quick example. Vietnam, which I was recently. Vietnam's economy is booming. That trade war between Trump and China meant that so many companies that were assembling all of our goods, and probably your phone and mine too, they were so-called offshored from China to places like Vietnam. So there are suddenly all these factories around second tier and or even top tier cities in Vietnam where people could go from farming, for example, and agricultural work with very few qualifications and get into manufacturing. Manufacturing what and for whom? For more of our consumption. Anyone else who's been to Vietnam knows that this was already preceded by the garment factories. So many of our garments are assembled or made in Vietnam and shipped up north. I was there when there was a major flood, and I was also there when another global catastrophe hit, COVID-19. People came to a halt. Vietnam was one of the first countries to close its borders because, of course, it shares a border with China. And this meant immediately people were, as we say, shelter in place. Now, for someone like me whose work is knowledge, I'm in the knowledge economy, I can communicate, meet, collaborate, and even do many aspects of my work, you guessed it, from the comfort of my own home digitally. But if I'm working with my hands, it is a whole different ball game. So what did we do? What did we do in the global north who needs places like Vietnam for our goods and services? Did we contribute to their recovery? Did we even acknowledge the challenges that they had during any of these natural or, in a sense, people catastrophes such as COVID? No, I don't think we did. Now, what kind of jobs were they doing? Again, people were scrambling for these kind of jobs, skills, so they can contribute to the global economy. And in order to do that, they need transportation. So, of course, you have cities that boomed. We talked in the early 2000s about Asian megacities, and Hanoi is becoming an Asian megacity where the earth is literally shifting under you for industrial growth. And growth for what? So that people can have a higher GDP and contribute into this game that we call capitalism. Now that should give you a few trigger warnings. A, what about the pollution in the cities, and who deals with the human cost of poor air, of infrastructure that has not been able to catch up with where the workers need to be? Equally, and this is where COP27 really pointed the finger directly at us, what about those loans? What about those, what we in the 90s we would call structural adjustment loans? Again, those loans are posited towards gearing up economies in the global south to become industrialized and do so in ways that produce products for our consumption. And what's worse, we were even giving them our waste. We're even like using up our stuff, our gadgets, our clothes, and sending it back to them. Well, what about those loans? Well, they're poorer than us and they may have worse credit than us. So they're, as you know, borrowing money at radically different rates. And as soon as those loans come through, the repayment cycle starts, no matter what. Again, what happens when there's a national disaster and literally people stop working? Are the loans halted like they were for many people in the global north and countries that even in the UK, they had furlough? In the US, they were even able to stall off student loans. How were poorer countries and middle income countries and countries that were growing in order to, again, feed our needs, how were they supported during these mass global tragedies? Well, we did what we always said: pick yourselves up by your bootstraps.